This is Talk Business and Politics with Roby Brock.
Welcome to today's Talk Business and Politics Daily. I'm Roby Brock. Glad to have you with us. We are joined by Congressman French Hill. He represents Arkansas' 2nd Congressional District. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Roby. Thanks.
You doing well?
Doing great.
Having a good summer?
Excellent summer.
What are you, not in Washington? And
Well,
that's
I'm
what's
home.
made it so
I'm
fun?
home, and we have our youngest headed off to college, so we're in full prep.
Where's he going to
mode.
school?
He's going to go to the University of the South.
Oh, yeah, nice. Nice. That's a hard drive, too. We were talking about hard drives
Right.
earlier. That one's not a...
It's about
hop on a
seven
plane and
hours.
jump off there.
Yeah.
So, well, congratulations
Thank
to
you.
you on that. Let's begin talking about the economy and what's going on here. There was some good news at the tail end of the week with 4.1% GDP growth. Certainly we've seen numbers like that before, but it's been a little bit of time. This is one data point. I want you to take your congressman hat off and give me your banker's unvarnished analysis on this.
Right.
What's really happening in the economy right now from your perspective?
Well, I do think business investment is increasing at good rates, and that's the secret to higher productivity. And higher productivity is the secret to growing wages. So I do like to see in the first and second quarter this increase in business investment. Some of that's geared clearly from the Tax Cut Act and the change in business taxation, so that's encouraging. There was some advance purchases in this quarter that boosted it, and no one quarter is a trend. So I like to see growth rates for 3 quarters in a row. And in my view, Roby, anything over 3% is what we need in order to have the kind of opportunities for people for increased wages and more jobs.
All right, and we are not seeing those wages move yet, at least according to some analysis. But perhaps maybe, as you just said, 1 quarter is not a trend. Maybe the president was a little optimistic to say it was historic and game-changing in all of this.
Well, we haven't had it since in the middle part of 2014.
Mm-hmm.
What I think the president's reflecting, though, is we have the lowest unemployment since 1969, 50 years. We have high small business optimism. We have small business growth good. People, about 54% of Americans feel optimistic about their future. So I think he's reflecting on a macro trend, which has been positive over the last few months, that the economy is growing at a faster rate and people are feeling that.
There are some negatives to be aware of, as you and I have discussed in the past. You've got the tariffs and the trade wars that are going on. 2 earnings came out on Monday morning. I want to read you a little bit from both of them. Tyson Foods out with their earnings that said, their CEO, Tom Hayes, said that the tariffs are negatively impacting chicken and pork prices. Caterpillar also said steel tariffs adding to input costs by $100 to $200 million. We've seen the administration's $12 billion proposed, bailout of the farmers on soybeans. Is this good trade policy to have this happening when you see this kind of reaction from corporate America?
No, and as you know, I've objected to particularly the national security steel and aluminum tariffs across the board. I think using that was a mistake. I think people in the House and the Senate have informed the president they think it's a mistake. There was a sense of that in the Senate last week on the appropriations bill, where the Senate overwhelmingly encouraged Congress to step in on that topic. It was a non-binding resolution, but it was a sense of the Senate. There's a smarter way to do steel and aluminum work and hit the target, which is China. China's the leading dumper of steel and aluminum.
So why aren't we doing that? Why aren't we doing something smarter?
Well, I think that's what we should be doing, and that's what we've told the White House. They chose to go across the board because they wanted to prop up steel and aluminum manufacturers here. They wanted to send a message worldwide, we're taking this seriously. They wanted to stop the potential transshipment of dumped Chinese steel through a third country. But I still believe there's a better way to do it, and I've offered that as a suggestion, and we're still pushing. Congress has the ultimate responsibility on trade. It's a constitutionally enumerated power, and I think you'll see us continue to push back, particularly on the steel and aluminum tariff
You've been there
issue.
long enough. You could sponsor a bill on that, couldn't you? A resolution?
Well, we have a bill on that that Warren Davidson's working on, that people we're working on, but also this issue of getting a resolution by the House to head in a different direction. All that's being worked on as we go.
Let's shift gears and talk about immigration. We saw late last week the supposed resolution of some of these separated families reunited under the zero tolerance policy for immigration that we saw earlier. There's still 700, according to media reports, 711 of over 2,500 children were not reunited with their families. Are you satisfied with this resolution of this latest deadline?
I think they're still working on that. Those all had some sort of a criminality connected to the parents. And as you know, if parents conduct a crime here in the United States, we separate the kids and put them in foster care. So we have this legal procedures that we have in our country that we're working through. The administration's committed, and they met the commitment of the court to reunite all the parents with their kids that were eligible. You know, I'm on record saying that kids and their parents shouldn't be separated no matter how they came into the country, which would be at a port of entry seeking asylum legally, crossing the border illegally as a family. Both of those cases, I think the kids should be kept with the parents during the adjudication of their case. But I'll say this, of the 12,000 kids on the border recently, 10,000 of them were separated by their parents in their home country. They were sent to the border to cross by themselves or with a coyote. And that's a real risk for human trafficking. Mm-hmm. During the last few years of the Obama administration, there were about 90,000 unaccompanied kids on the border. So this is a foster care issue. It's a Department of Human Services challenge. It's a compassion challenge. But there's also this risk of real human trafficking risk. Mm-hmm. In those 90,000, we see a lot of cases where they are in slave labor in the United States for a, quote, next of kin relative or pressed into prostitution or illegal child labor. So it's a big issue.
Can you resolve those cases? I mean, that takes it a level and a depth of knowledge that how do you find out all of those circumstances tied to a particular case? That's not necessarily going to come out in any kind of adjudication hearing. Nonetheless, you still have this human tragedy of these kids, and we've seen the reports of some of these kids. It has been a traumatic, scarring event for them.
Well, as I say, the biggest scarring is you have with the 10,000 recently and 90,000 2013 to 2016. The scarring takes place when you send your kid across the border with no adult supervision. So this is a tough area. Congress has proposed a change to keep unification for kids, either seeking asylum or whose adult has violated the law. We need to get that passed. We'll never fix this regulatorily. We need Congress to pass a law to fix it. And as to the legacy problem, this comes to proper vetting. And when people put pressure on these agencies to immediately place children, I don't think that vetting gets done appropriately. Mm-hmm. So it's a careful balance. It's not an easy job, and my heart goes out to the kids and their parents that are with them and to the people trying to treat them fairly.
It's passionate on both sides of this issue. If you come down on the side of the kids and this was a terrible policy, you see some really raw emotions on that side of the debate. And for those that feel like illegal immigration should be stopped, period, no matter what the circumstances are, the outcomes are, that is a very strong emotional position that you will see from a completely different viewpoint right there. When you're out on the campaign trail, when you're out talking to constituents, what do you hear more of?
I hear a good mix. I mean, people want compassion. You don't have to have border security without compassion. I've made 4 trips to the border. I think I have a good feeling from both families, lawyers, border security people, what we need to be doing to have a safer border, a more secure border, and a more humane border.
All right. Let's shift our gears to Russia. The president continues to tweet on a near daily basis about the Russian investigation. He describes it as a witch hunt, despite plea agreements, despite indictments that are coming down the path. Is it a witch hunt in your estimation?
Well, I've said from the very, very beginning of appointment of Bob Mueller as an investigation, we need to let Bob Mueller do his job and see where it goes. With that said, we've also learned since the summer of 2016 about really bad procedures and bad process at the FBI. Whether you're a Democrat and feel victimized by Jim Comey, like Debbie Wasserman Schultz, or the Trump campaign and Jim Comey's investigation there. Both sides are concerned about the FBI procedures. I think that's why you see such a hot, focused, relentless investigation by the Oversight Committee and the Judiciary Committee to try to get to what is the truth in that.
You don't think they've crossed the border? I mean, they crossed the line on some of their requests and their actions. I mean, we are breaking some unprecedented territory here in the request of what they've asked for from the FBI and what the FBI has actually released. Is that not concern you in terms of policy going forward?
Well, I think what concerns me is the allegations that there was spying on domestic citizens during a political campaign, and you can understand how that shakes the faith in the American citizens in the FBI and the upper echelons. Was it justified?
When you look at you look at some of the FISA warrant stuff that's been disclosed. I mean,
yeah.
I think clearly there was a lot of checks and balances that all of that had to go through, that there were some concerns there.
Well, that's what I say. I think we need to let these investigations proceed, both the Judiciary and the Oversight Committee, as well as what Bob Mueller's doing.
Lastly, a lot of Republicans have gone on the record even as saying they were concerned about President Trump's chumminess with Vladimir Putin in the last couple of weeks right there. Does it concern you? Are we as tough on Russia as we should be?
I think as a government we are. I issued my statement immediately after the President's Helsinki summit press conference and my disappointment in his tone and the statement that he made. He's walked it back. But look, this government collectively, the executive branch and the legislative branch, have never been tougher on Russia than they are today. Increasing funding for NATO, expanding NATO mission, sanctions on Russia for Crimea and Syria, urging our European partners to be tough, work with us on those challenges, money for election monitoring here, bills to help Europe avoid election meddling. So when you take it as a group, I don't think there's any question that the U.S. government has been tough and continues to be tough on Russia.
But is the president undercutting that message?
I think in his Helsinki press conference he did, and I think he walked it back. And he's tried to reiterate some of these things that are global policy related to Russia, not only in the United States, but with our partners in Europe.
You worried about the electrical grid?
Well, I stay worried about the electrical grid generally from cyber or meddling. We saw the stories last week about Russia engaged there. We have a leadership here in Little Rock with MISO's headquarters here and Southwest Power Pool here that are on the focus of protecting American electric power and our grid. And it's something that all of us in Congress are concerned about, which is why we have cyber protection programs for the electrical grid in place.
All right. It's Congressman French Hill. He represents the 2nd Congressional District
Thanks.
of Arkansas.
Good
to see you.
Roby.
Thanks for being here.
You bet.
That's all for today's program. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Roby Brock. We'll see you next time.
Each day, the promise of our nation begins again. Arkansas and America, moving forward. I help make that promise a reality. It's not for everyone, but people everywhere depend on us.
Oh, I love you too, sweetie.
Trucking delivers, or everything stops. And that's what drives me.
I did.
Arkansas Electric Cooperative Corporation provides electric energy across 2/3 of Arkansas. This is an exciting time in our energy history, with incredible progress being made in renewable energy and storage technologies. As our energy portfolio continues to diversify, we'll maintain an all-the-above strategy to provide reliable and affordable electricity. Ever since the first light bulbs were placed in our members' homes, the electric cooperatives have been the solutions provider for our members, and we want to continue that well into the future.